Welcome back to the channel USD Coins, coin collectors, history buffs, and treasure hunters. If you're someone who enjoys uncovering rare gems from the past or someone fascinated by the idea that a simple coin in your pocket could actually be worth a fortune, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the story behind one of the most mysterious and intriguing coins in American numismatic history, the legendary 1952 Lincoln wheat penny. Believe it or not, while its face value is just 1 cent, one particular example of this coin has been reported to be worth a staggering $1.1 million. That's right, a single copper penny, potentially hiding in a collection or even inside an old coin jar, could be worth more than a luxury car or even a house. You might be wondering, how can a coin that was mass-produced in the millions during the 1950s possibly be worth that kind of money? Well, the answer lies in the complex world of mint errors, rare variations, unusual historical circumstances, and the relentless fascination collectors have with anomalies that make certain coins stand out from the rest. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. So sit back, grab your favorite drink, and prepare to dive into a fascinating journey through American coinage, where we'll examine what makes the 1952 Lincoln wheat penny so special, and potentially so valuable. Let's start with some background. The Lincoln wheat cent, designed by Victor David Brenner, was first minted in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It replaced the Indian head cent and was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. The wheat ears on the reverse were symbolic of America's agricultural strength, and the design lasted until 1958, when the reverse was changed to feature the Lincoln Memorial. By 1952, the Lincoln wheat cent had been in production for over 4 decades, and the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of them that year. In fact, over 746 million Lincoln cents were minted in Denver alone in 1952, all bearing the small d mint mark under the date on the obverse. With so many coins produced, it may seem impossible that any one of them could stand out. But that's where error coins come into play. Minting errors are mistakes made during the production process, and they can range from very subtle die cracks to dramatic misstrikes and doubled dies. For collectors, the rarity and nature of these errors often translate directly to value, and the more unique and well-documented the error, the higher the value a coin can command. In the case of the 1952 Lincoln cent, reports suggest that a particular specimen has garnered such attention and immense value because of a rare and potentially unique combination of minting errors. While many 1952 cents are fairly common, and in circulated condition are worth only a few cents to maybe $1 or $2, certain error varieties from this year and mint can be exceedingly rare. The $1 million example is believed to be a perfect storm of multiple factors: a possible double die, an off-center strike, a misplaced or repunched mint mark, and perhaps even a transitional composition error. Let's break that down further, starting with the concept of a double die. This type of error occurs not when the coin is struck, but earlier in the die-making process, when a working die is being created from a hub. If the hub impresses the design onto the die twice, slightly misaligned, then all coins struck from that die will show doubling in the affected areas. The most famous example is the 1955 double die cent, but similar doubling has been documented on other years, including 1952. A double die on a 1952 coin, particularly if it's dramatic and visible to the naked eye, would immediately raise its value. Next up is the idea of an off-center strike. This is a fairly self-explanatory error in which the coin blank, or planchet, is not properly seated in the press and gets struck off-center. Depending on the degree of the misalignment, the coin can be partly blank, with design elements distorted or missing entirely. Mild off-center errors are not that rare, but when combined with other types of errors, their value increases substantially. Now let's talk about mint marks. The D under the 1952 date indicates that the coin was minted in Denver. During this period, mint marks were still being hand-punched into the dies, which introduced the possibility of human error. Repunched mint marks, RPMs, are a result of the mint mark being stamped more than once, often at slightly different angles or positions. These errors are well known to collectors and, depending on severity, can fetch high prices. A strong, visible RPM on a 1952 penny adds to its desirability, but things get even more intriguing when we consider the possibility of a misplaced mint mark. This occurs when the mint mark is punched outside its normal location, perhaps too high, too low, or skewed to one side. In rare cases, it may even end up overlapping design elements, like Lincoln's shoulder or the date itself. Such errors are exceedingly rare and can elevate a coin's value into the thousands or tens of thousands. If the $1 million 1952 penny has a dramatic misplaced mint mark in addition to other errors, that would be one more piece of the puzzle explaining its extraordinary worth. One of the most tantalizing possibilities is that this coin could be a transitional error. Transitional errors occur when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different year or denomination. For example, in 1943, due to wartime metal shortages, the U.S. Mint struck Lincoln cents on zinc-coated steel planchets instead of copper. A few 1943 cents were mistakenly struck on leftover 1942 copper planchets, and these rare errors have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Conversely, some 1944 cents were mistakenly struck on steel planchets left over from 1943. A similar error involving a 1952 cent, say, struck on a leftover steel or silver planchet, would create a highly collectible and unique coin. There's also the possibility that this specific penny has what's known as a mule error. A mule is a coin struck with mismatched dies, typically from two different denominations. These are among the rarest of all mint errors and are almost always extremely valuable. While there's no widely known mule involving a 1952 cent, the idea that this coin could have been struck with, say, a reverse die intended for a different coin is a possibility worth considering when trying to understand its high valuation. But beyond the physical errors, provenance and condition also matter greatly in the coin world. If the $1 million 1952 cent is in an exceptionally high state of preservation, such as a mint state 67 or higher, with full red luster, it would be among the finest known examples of its kind. Combine that level of preservation with dramatic, visible errors, and it becomes easy to see why collectors would be willing to pay a premium for it. Coins graded by reputable services like PCGS or NGC are authenticated and evaluated on a strict scale, and coins that are top pop in their category often sell for jaw-dropping amounts. Provenance, or ownership history, also plays a role. A coin with a well-documented journey, especially one featured in major numismatic publications or owned by a legendary collector, tends to command higher prices. If this particular 1952 cent has appeared in auctions, exhibitions, or famous collections, those factors would add to its prestige and price tag. So, is it really worth $1.1 million? Well, in the world of rare coins, the value is ultimately determined by what someone is willing to pay. And history has shown that collectors will pay enormous sums for coins that are unique, mysterious, and beautiful in their imperfection. If a wealthy collector sees in this penny a once-in-a-lifetime error, the only known example with a specific set of minting anomalies, and it checks all the boxes, rarity, condition, provenance, then yes, it absolutely could sell for over $1 million. What makes this story even more exciting is the idea that coins like this can still be out there. They're not necessarily locked away in museums or private vaults. Some may be sitting unnoticed in old coffee cans, dresser drawers, or coin albums passed down through generations. That's part of the thrill. Anyone could stumble upon one of these hidden treasures. All it takes is a little knowledge, a sharp eye, and a bit of luck. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of rare coins, and more specifically, we're taking a deep and detailed look at one of the most intriguing, mysterious, and surprisingly valuable pennies ever minted in the United States, the 1955 Liberty 1-cent coin. Yes, that humble penny you might overlook could actually be worth over $1 million under the right circumstances. This isn't just another coin collecting tale, this is a story about a minting mistake that turned ordinary metal into numismatic gold. So get comfortable, because we're about to unpack every detail that makes the 1955 Liberty cent an absolute legend in the coin world. Let's start by understanding why a coin with a face value of just 1 cent could be worth so much more. Normally, when a coin is minted by the United States Mint, it goes through a highly controlled process that ensures each coin is struck cleanly and uniformly. However, every now and then, errors occur, sometimes small and barely noticeable, but other times so significant that they transform an everyday coin into a rare treasure. That's exactly what happened with the 1955 Liberty 1-cent coin. Back in 1955, the U.S. Mint was located in several cities, but for the purposes of this coin, we're primarily focused on the Philadelphia Mint. This facility was responsible for minting a large volume of coins and had a reputation for producing quality currency. But as demand for coins soared in the post-war economic boom, pressure on the mint increased. During one of the late-night production shifts, a critical mistake occurred in the minting process, giving birth to what would eventually become known as the 1955 double-die penny. Now, what is a double die, and why is it such a big deal? In basic terms, a double die error happens during the hubbing process. That's the part of minting where the design is transferred from the die to the planchet, the blank coin. If the die used to strike the coin receives an accidental double impression from the hub, the resulting image on the coin appears as if it's been stamped twice, creating a noticeable doubling effect on the letters and numbers. This is not a minor misalignment, this is a dramatic, eye-catching error. The most famous example of this error in the 1955 cent appears on the obverse, or the front of the coin, where you'll see a strong doubling in the inscriptions. Look closely at the words, Liberty, and, In God We Trust, and especially the date, 1955. If you come across a coin that shows this doubling clearly, you may very well be looking at one of the most valuable pennies in the world. This is what makes the 1955 double-die cent so extraordinary. It's not just rare, it's visibly, dramatically different. So how many of these double-die cents are out there? Estimates vary, but it's believed that between 20,000 to 24,000 of them were originally minted before the error was caught. What's fascinating is that the mint didn't destroy all the faulty coins. Instead, because of the sheer volume already produced and packaged into bags, they were released into circulation. That means regular people, without even knowing it, were spending or saving pennies that were worth thousands, even hundreds of thousands, of dollars. These coins could have been sitting in jars, drawers, or change purses for decades before anyone realized their value, but here's where things get even more interesting. Not all 1955 cents with errors are created equal. Over the years, collectors and experts have discovered a range of other minting anomalies in 1955 pennies beyond the famous double die. These include off-center strikes, die cracks, repunched mint marks, known as RPMs, and even coins struck on the wrong planchet, like a penny struck on a dime or nickel blank. Each of these errors can increase the value of a coin, depending on the severity and visibility of the mistake. Let's talk for a moment about mint marks. In 1955, most pennies were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which, at the time, did not use a mint mark. However, collectors have found 1955 cents with added or altered mint marks, sometimes due to counterfeiting attempts, and other times because of genuine RPM errors. These repunched mint marks happen when the initial mint mark was improperly positioned or weakly struck, prompting the mint to punch it in again. If the punches don't align perfectly, you end up with a ghost-like effect that adds significant collector interest. Then there are the die cracks, tiny or sometimes prominent raised lines on the surface of the coin that occur when the die used to strike the coin begins to deteriorate or break. While not as dramatic as doubling, die cracks add character and uniqueness to each coin and can enhance its value depending on location and size. Some 1955 pennies even exhibit die chips, where metal appears to bubble or rise on certain parts of the design, often around Lincoln's eye or mouth, which has led to colorful nicknames like the Bug-Eye Lincoln. And don't forget about off-center strikes, another type of error that occurred in 1955 and throughout coin history. These happen when the planchet is not properly aligned under the die, resulting in a coin that is partially blank on one side and heavily shifted on the other. A 1955 penny with an off-center strike, especially one that includes the full date and major features, can be a serious collector's item. Now, the crown jewel remains the true 1955 double-die obverse cent. While lower-grade examples can fetch several $1,000s, high-grade specimens in mint condition have sold for six figures. In a few documented sales, pristine examples graded at MS65 red, meaning mint state with full red color, have pushed close to or even exceeded the $1 million mark in auctions. It's the perfect storm of rarity, visibility of the error, historical significance, and collector demand. You might be wondering, how do you know if your 1955 penny is the valuable one? It's not enough to just look at the date. You need to examine the coin closely under magnification. The true double die variety will show extremely clear doubling of the letters and numbers. Be cautious, though. There are many fakes and counterfeits on the market, including coins altered after minting to appear doubled. In fact, one of the biggest challenges for collectors is distinguishing the real thing from cleverly manufactured counterfeits. There's also the so-called poor man's double die, which is a misleading nickname given to a different 1955 penny that shows minor doubling due to die deterioration rather than an actual double die. These coins are far more common and usually only worth a few dollars. But they've confused countless novice collectors who get excited thinking they've hit the jackpot. The key to identifying the real 1955 double die is the bold, unmistakable doubling on all of the obverse inscriptions, especially on Liberty and In God We Trust. To truly verify a coin's authenticity and value, experts recommend having it graded and authenticated by a reputable third-party grading service, such as the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or the Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC. These services can confirm whether your coin is genuine, assign it a grade based on its condition, and encapsulate it for protection and resale value. In the case of a rare 1955 double die, authentication can mean the difference between a coin worth a few bucks and one worth $1 million. Another interesting aspect to consider is the historical context of this coin. The 1950s were a transformative time in American life, post-war prosperity, the rise of suburbia, and a baby boom that changed the demographic landscape. The U.S. Mint was operating full throttle to keep up with economic demand, and quality control occasionally took a back seat to output. That's part of why the 1955 error slipped through. It's a tangible piece of history, not just in the technical minting sense, but as a reflection of the country's growth and development. Beyond its error and rarity, the 1955 double die cent has become a sort of pop culture icon in the coin collecting community. It's frequently featured in collectors' guides, coin shows, online forums, and YouTube videos. Its notoriety draws in not only hardcore numismatists but also casual treasure hunters who scour old jars, rolls of pennies, and estate sales, hoping to find one of these elusive gems. Its story captures the imagination because it represents the idea that something ordinary can become extraordinary through a twist of fate. It's also worth noting that values can change over time. As fewer high-quality examples remain in circulation or ungraded, prices tend to rise due to scarcity. If someone discovers a new variety or previously unknown error connected to the 1955 penny, that could spark even greater interest and price spikes. The coin market is dynamic, influenced by demand, media attention, economic trends, and generational interest. Right now, the market for rare coins, especially those with clear errors and historical importance like the 1955 double die, is hotter than ever.